$500 billion. That is the conservative estimate of capital locked inside China's ghost cities, not pledged, not projected, already poured, concrete cured, steel set, infrastructure commissioned, entire urban systems built to completion, and then left unused. This was not reconstruction after war, not recovery after disaster. This was absence by design. Cities delivered on schedule to residents who never came. The dream was explicit. China would compress 100 years of Western urbanization into 30. Rural labor would convert into urban consumption. Property would become the primary store of household wealth. Local governments would fund themselves through land sales. Developers would scale infinitely. Growth would no longer depend on productivity, but velocity. Speed was the ideology. Evergrande became the flagship because it understood the incentive structure better than anyone else. Acquire land aggressively. Build entire districts at once. Pre-sell. Apartments years before delivery. Recognize revenue immediately. Roll debt forward continuously. Expand faster than scrutiny. On paper, it worked. GDP rose. Employment appeared strong. Fixed asset investment exploded. The skyline changed faster than demographics. But demand was assumed, not verified. Apartments were not bought to be lived in. They were bought to be held. Empty units were considered healthy. Vacancy signaled confidence. Families purchased second and third apartments as inflation hedges. Rental yield was irrelevant. Occupancy was irrelevant. Price appreciation was the only metric that mattered. Local governments became dependent on this illusion. In some provinces, land sales accounted for more than 40% of fiscal revenue. Without rising land prices, budgets collapsed. Developers, in turn, depended on perpetual pre-sales to service old obligations. Banks depended on collateral values that required prices to never fall. Every participant understood the risk. No one could exit. This was not a housing market. It was a synchronized balance sheet expansion disguised as urbanization. And systems like this do not fail gradually. They fail the moment growth decelerates. Most people ignore these numbers, but you are here because you want the truth. Subscribe to the ledger. Here are the numbers that matter. Evergrande reported over $300 billion in liabilities. That figure excludes off-balance sheet guarantees, wealth management, products sold to retail investors, and supplier IOUs treated as temporary liabilities. Real exposure was higher. Revenue recognition occurred at contract signing, not delivery. Construction costs were capitalized. Cash from future buyers was diverted to service existing debt. This is textbook maturity mismatch. Long-term assets financed by short-term confidence. As long as new buyers entered the system, cash flowed. When buyer growth slowed, liquidity vanished. Demographics were the first fracture point. China's working-age population peaked years ago. Birth rates collapsed below replacement. Household formation slowed sharply. Urbanization hit saturation in Tier 1 and Tier 2 cities. There were fewer new buyers each year, and they carried more debt. At the same time, household leverage surged. Mortgage-to-income ratios climbed. Savings were exhausted. Price growth slowed. Speculation stalled. Sales volume fell before prices did. That distinction matters. Volume collapse kills. Cash flow instantly. Developers do not fail because prices drop. They fail because transactions stop. When pre-sales declined, construction halted. When construction halted, confidence evaporated. Mortgage boycotts spread. Homebuyers refused to service loans on undelivered units. Suppliers stopped shipping materials. Contractors demanded cash. The feedback loop inverted. Banks responded by extending maturities, rolling loans, and instructing state-owned entities to absorb assets. This bought time. It did not restore demand. Time is not capital. The system had no shock absorbers, no redundancy, no organic demand beneath the leverage. Once sales velocity dropped below debt service velocity, failure was mathematically guaranteed. When economics failed, physics took over. Buildings are not static assets. They are systems that require human activity to remain stable. Occupancy generates heat, airflow, vibration, maintenance cycles. Without these inputs, structures degrade faster. In China's ghost cities, vacancy rates exceeded 20% nationally and much higher in specific districts. Entire neighborhoods sat unused. Water stagnated in plumbing systems, accelerating corrosion. Mold spread in sealed units. Electrical systems failed without load balancing. Steel reinforcement rusted prematurely due to poor ventilation and humidity control. Elevators seized from disuse. Concrete cracked from thermal cycling without interior heat. Infrastructure aged without utilization. These cities deteriorated years ahead of schedule. Maintenance budgets assumed occupancy-based fees that never materialized. Property management companies collapsed. Municipal services were scaled back. What looked new on satellite images was already failing internally. Local governments faced an impossible choice: fund maintenance for empty cities with no tax base, or allow decay to accelerate and erase asset values. Most chose delay. Delay always worsens loss. The illusion of wealth began to rot physically. At the same time, unfinished projects froze capital permanently. Half-built towers cannot be repurposed cheaply. Demolition is expensive. Conversion is complex. Capital remained trapped in unusable form. This is the hidden cost of misallocated infrastructure. It is not just wasted money, it is money rendered immobile. Debt, unlike buildings, remains fully mobile. Interest accrues. Obligations compound. The physical world degrades while the financial world accelerates. This asymmetry guarantees collapse. The verdict is unambiguous. China did not overbuild by accident. It followed incentives to their logical conclusion. It replaced productivity with leverage, population with projection, demand with assumption. Evergrande was not reckless. It was rational within a distorted system. Housing cannot substitute for growth. Infrastructure cannot replace demographics. Debt cannot manufacture demand. These ghost cities are not failures of planning. They are successful executions of a flawed model. And that model is not unique. Wherever governments rely on asset inflation to fund operations, the pattern repeats. Wherever construction is used to mask stagnation, wherever debt is disguised as development, the lesson is not ideological, it is mechanical. You cannot scale demand. You cannot pre-sell time. You cannot compound leverage faster than population, income, and utility. The lights stay off because no one was ever meant to live there. These cities were storage units for capital, and capital does not age gracefully when abandoned. This story does not end here, because once you recognize this pattern, you see it everywhere. Different materials, same math, different promises, same silence at the end. This city was empty. The next one will be closer, and it will look familiar. Join the ledger. See what falls next.